Now we are going to create a package for PHP. Do you remember the router we built? We are going to add more functionality to it and prepare it for a package and then publish it. The steps to create a package are very simple. First we have an idea, then we write the code, then we prepare the package, and then we publish it. Pause the video, try to do it yourself, and then come back and see how I would do it. Okay, let's start with the very first step, which is idea. In our case, we are going to build a router package. We want it to work something like this. Router, handle, and then method type, and the path, and then finally the file name. So I want it to work something like this. I also want it to work like this. So instead of writing the method type, I want to have a function for that method type specifically. So I could say router get the path and the file name. I could use the main methods like this for get, post, delete, put, patch, and head. I also want it to work without a file. So if I pass the callback, I would expect it to work something like this. Get, and then the function, anonymous function, and then have anything I want here instead of having a specific file for it. For example, I could say hello world and it would work. These are the ideas I had. So now let's start working on the code and see how we can implement them. Well, since we have already written the basic router before, we can use that code to start and then continue adding more functionalities to it. So let me bring the code here. We had a class called router. So let me create the file here, new PHP class, and it would be called router. Here I had this code. This code would get a method type and then the path and then the file name. It would check the current method and current URI. If the current method is not the same as the method here, it would return false. Otherwise, it would go and check the path. Then, because in that project we had PHP course as the root folder, we had added here, but in this section, because we do not have that root, we can remove it. Then we check the path with the pattern and preg match, and if it matched, we required the file name and then exited the code. Otherwise we return false. So other routes would test this path and method type to check if they can require the file name that is specified. We also needed the htaccess file, so let me create that as well. New file .htaccess, and inside that htaccess we had that rewrite engine on code. If the root folder was different, we would add it here, but right now because the root folder is the folder that our codes are in, we don't need to add anything here. First of all, we need to require that file, so let's require it here. Require once router.php, and then we would say something like router handle. If it's a get request to test, then open the file test.php. Then we would also need a test.php file. Inside that test.php we can say echo I'm here, it works. Now we come here and let's test our code. Instead of using XAMPP, I would like to use the PHP server. In order to use that, we need to write PHP, capital S, localhost, and then the port. In my case, I would like to use port 8000. So let's run it. Let me go to my browser and go to localhost 8000. Now it's in index file. Let's go to test to see if it works. Perfect. It says I'm here. It works. Now we are going to continue adding more functionalities. Let's go back to my code. Here we said that the very first thing that we said we want to add was I wanted to have the function like get, post, put, other main method types. I could copy the code and change it to get and then say okay, the method would be get, and here I would hardcode that to get and it would work, no problem. But because we want to add like 5 or 6 methods, and if I want to change something then I have to change it everywhere, it would be very hard to maintain. So instead of that, I would like to remove all of it. I would get path and file name, and then here I would call this main handle function. So later if I wanted to change anything, if I change it here, it would affect everywhere. So instead of returning false, I would return self, because we are doing a static instead of object. So instead of using this, we are going to use self. So we are going to say self handle. The method would be get, and then the path would be the same path, and the file name would be the same file name. Okay, now let's see if it works. If I go to my index and change handle to, let me comment that out, change my handle to get and remove the method type, now I would expect it to work. So let me go to my browser to see if it works. Perfect, it works. We refresh the page and it brought the code here. Perfect. So this part is over. Now let's go back to code. Let me add the other methods as well. We had get, we have post, we would have put, patch, delete. Let me update them. Get post, post, we would have put, and put here we would have patch, and patch here we would have delete, and delete here. I could also add head, but it's not very useful, it's not very popular. Let me double check everything. Delete, delete, patch, patch, put, put, post, post, and get, get. Perfect. Now my last idea was that instead of having a file, I would like it to work with anonymous functions as well. So here I would be writing something like this: get function, and inside this I would write echo I'm in the function. So let me comment that part out and let's go to our browser. At the moment I don't expect it to work, so let's try it. As you can see, it says object of class closure could not be converted to a string, because at the moment when we pass anonymous function, it's type of closure, so it cannot convert it to file and require it, because it want to convert it to string and require it, it wouldn't be possible for it. That's why we receive this error. So let's go back to our code and see what we can do. The part that gives me an error is exactly here. We preg match, the pattern matches. Now here we want to require the file, but let's change it. It said that the class was closure and it could not be converted to a string. So let's check if the class is, if the type is closure, we wouldn't need to require it, we would just run it. So let's say if file name is instance of closure, then just call it like a function. File name, now I realize is not a good name for the variable, but let's just deal with it. File name is not a good name for this variable right now because we're calling it like a function. For now it's okay, later we can change the variable names. Otherwise it's a file, it's not a closure, and we can require it. So let's run the code again to see if it works. Let's go back to browser, refresh the page. Perfect, it works, but I'm not sure if it works with named function. Let me try that, because a lot of times we don't want to pass just anonymous function. Maybe we define a function somewhere else and we want to pass that. So let me see if instead of anonymous function we pass something like route. Here it would be function test me, and then we would have echo. This works as well. So instead of passing file name, we would pass the named function. So let me run the code to see if it works. Let me go back to my browser, refresh the page. It tells me that failed to open stream. Because it's a string, it's not a closure like anonymous function. It thinks that it's a file and it wants to require it like a file. That's why it says I cannot open a stream, because there is no file or directory called test me. So let's see how we can fix that as well. Let me go back to my code. Here we will check if the instance is closure. There is another built-in function called isCallable. I think if we use that, our problem would be solved. If is callable, the file name, just call it, no matter it's anonymous function or if it's a named function, predefined function. So if it's callable, just call it like a function. Otherwise it's probably file name and then require it. So let's see if this would solve our problem. Let's go back to our browser, refresh the page. Perfect, it works. Now let's test the other ones to see if they work as well or not. Let me go back to the code in the index file. Let me comment this part out and bring this back. Let me go back to the browser again, refresh the page. Perfect, this one works. Go to the code, and if we pass the file itself, go back to the browser, refresh the page, it works as well. Perfect, all of them are working. Now the code is ready. If you want to create a package and publish it so other developers are going to use it, it's a great idea to test it as well, but right now we are not going to write the test. We are going to prepare this code and publish it. When you want to create a package, it's a good idea to put your files in this kind of folder structure. Your main file would be in source. You would have a tests folder. You would have your composer.json file. You would have a readme, and you would have a license. So let me prepare all of them. The very first thing is composer.json. There are a lot of PHP package templates out there, and the most famous one is the one by Spatty. We can use that, or we can write it ourselves. It's very easy for our package. It's very simple. For the composer.json file, we can just start composer init and go through the steps together. So let's do it. Let me create a new terminal and run composer init. It asks what you like to call this package. The structure is normally the vendor name and then the package. So I would like to call it AMIR KAMIZI and then PHP router. Okay. Description. This is a simple router built during the PHP course. And later I would add a link to the course in the description. Author is AMIR KAMIZI. Minimum stability dev, and prefer stable. We would later add it to package type. Just skip it. License would be MIT. Would you like to define your dependency require interactively? Yes, why not? I would require PHP, and at least it should be 7.3. 7.3. I don't need any more packages. Would you like to define your dev dependency? No, right now. Add PSR auto load mapping. Yes, it's a good idea. And this is the file that it has created. Authors is AMIR KAMIZI, minimum stability dev. Do you confirm generation? Yes, please. Would you like to install dependencies now? No. Use namespace AMIR KAMIZI PHP router in source folder. Okay, it has created a source folder for me. I would put my router code in the source folder, and as it says here, I should add the namespace AMIR KAMIZI PHP router. Okay, perfect. And include the composer autoloader with require vendor autoload.php. So we can later, when we want to use this, we should do it like this in the index file. But right now, obviously, I'm not going to publish this index file. I have prepared some README and the file for license. So let me put them here as well. By accident invent to source. Okay. So we have this source folder. I messed up the files. Router should be in the source folder. Okay. Now inside the source folder we have router. I have the changelog file. Changelogs will be added here. I have the readme. Readme is something very simple. This package was developed during this course, and it has sections for supporting us. Install, usage. You have to have a htaccess file, and then inside that we can have handle or get, or you can pass anonymous functions instead of files. I've also added some examples here, and at the moment I don't have the test, but later we can have the test. So later we will clean this part out and add how we can actually run the tests. Changelog, we can have the changelog here, or we can have another changelog file, and inside that we would add everything in the readme. We just added a reference, and the link I think is wrong, so it's not in the source folder. And then contribution, security, vulnerabilities, and credits. And finally the license, which is MIT. If you don't want to have an MIT function, remove this part, add your own license. I will add the license file as well later, and I will put it here. Let me remove the files that are not necessary. So I would remove test. I would remove index.php, delete anyway. I would use htaccess, changelog, composer, readme, and test. I can remove htaccess as well, but because we have already written in the readme file that you need to add it based on your project. For the test, why it's not being deleted? Okay, I have created a repository on GitHub. So now I'm going to push my code to this repository so we can later publish it on Packagist. Okay, now as you can see, my readme file is here. My composer.json is here. My changelog and my gitignore and my source folder, which also have the router, is here. Okay, perfect. Let me now go to Packagist and see if I can publish this package there. We need to go to packagist.org, packagist.org. Here it writes everything about publishing a package. We already have name, description, and require, as we have already seen. This is a strict minimal information. Validate the package, write composer validate to check that your file has no syntax error, because composer has created the file for us. We are sure that there is no syntax error. We have committed the file and now we are going to publish it. Now let me go on and log in to Packagist. Now let's go to here, submit. We paste the repository URL here. We say check. Now it says, okay, one or more similarly named packages have already been submitted to packages. If this is a fork, read this. The package name found for your repository is AMIR KAMIZI. Press submit to confirm. There are other PHP routers, but none of them is AMIR KAMIZI, so it is unique, so it can be published. If you want to publish it, press here. So let me publish it. Now AMIR KAMIZI PHP router is available. All you need to do is composer require this. This package is not auto updated. Please set up GitHub hook for packages. Okay, that's not relevant at the moment. This is the readme file that we have prepared. This is the file, so let me require it in a new file, new folder, and see if we can use the package we have already built. So let's go back to our code. Let me close that and create a new folder for a second, and I'll be back. Now I have created new project and I want to see if we can use it. So let me open my terminal and let me copy the code from packages and paste it here. Composer require AMIR KAMIZI PHP router, composer.json directory. Do you want to use the one at this? No. Because we set minimum stability to dev, and at the moment if we say composer require, as you have seen, it gave us error because it wasn't stable. We have to add this dev master at dev in order to tell composer that it's okay, I want to require the dev version. Now if I refresh the folder, as you can see here I have a vendor, and in my index.php I'm going to use our package. So let's see if we can make it work. PHP, first of all we need to require the autoload, require once, vendor autoload.php. Now we can use the router. We can say router AMIR KAMIZI router. Perfect. I want to handle if it's a GET request to test, then I want to have an anonymous function, so I want to say okay, function, and then echo hello world from the new package. The moment of truth, let's see if it works. First of all, let me have my htaccess here because we have to have it in order for it to work. So let's create a new file, .htaccess, and let me copy that from the other file. Okay, now we have that, we have this, we have required the autoload. So the moment of truth, let me go to my browser and see if it works. Oh, first of all, let's run the PHP server. I forgot that. I was so excited, I forgot that. PHP s localhost 8000. Okay, now go to our browser, localhost test, refresh the page. Hello world from the new package. Perfect. Our package is ready. It's published on Packagist. We have created the repository on GitHub as well. Go build your own packages and publish it on Packagist. There are so many great packages, you can learn from them and you can build your own package. Really, the sky is limit. You can add to the community. This is the end of this video. Let's continue with our course.